So we're going to settle down onto our backs to start with, and we're going to do some twisty things, both on our backs and then on our sides. So just make sure you're warm enough, as it's a little bit cooler today than it has been. And yeah, that's it. And just start by settling down however you're comfortable. So I think what we'll do to start with at the very beginning is a little bit of focusing in on our breathing, and not for very long, and then we'll come to some movements. So maybe the first thing you can do once you're on your back is to feel the weight of your head on the floor, and then start to let your head roll a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. And just see how your neck feels. Just, if the neck feels at all tight, then as you're rolling your head from side to side, feeling that you're letting your neck ease out. And from rolling your head perhaps 2 or 3 more times to the right and to the left. From that, see if you can just find a comfortable place to settle the center of the back of your head onto the floor. And then bring your hands to rest somewhere on the front of your body. And just give yourself a little bit of time to let the hands settle, to let your breathing settle, and just noticing what you feel. So can you feel your body responding to your breathing? So can the hands feel any movement in the front of your body as you breathe in and as you breathe out? And also the body can feel the warmth and the weight of your hands, and this is quite settling and calming. So just let yourself have perhaps another 3 cycles of breath, just with the hands resting on the front of the body, feeling the breath coming in, the breath leaving you. And then from here, if your legs are long, you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the floor, and also to feel the back of your pelvis on the floor. And then, as we often do, you're going to start by letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And see how this feels. So again, if you're feeling it all creaky around your lower back, back of your pelvis, you can keep this movement quite small. Or really, find what feels comfortable to you. So a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, and just carry on with that for a few more times. And by tilting the knees, we're starting to bring a bit of rotation, a bit of this sort of twisting movement into the body. And then from here, we're going to do some movements of the upper back, and then we're going to come back to this tilting of the knees. So settle in the center. You could lengthen your legs out on the floor, because I'd like you to, if it's comfortable to lengthen your legs out, it might be a good idea. If not, just keep your knees bent and your feet standing on the floor. And then you're going to take your arms up. You're going to make a big circle with your arms. So there's a few different variations of this which we're going to do. So you're making a circle with your arms, interlinking your fingers as if you're holding a beach ball on your chest. And then you're going to start to rock across your upper back, a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. Letting your head move with your arms. So you're rocking towards the back of one shoulder and then the back of the other. And you're trying to keep your circle circular. So it's not so much about how far you're going. It's about whether you can keep this shape circular, and that you can feel that you're doing this rocking across your upper back. So little by little, we're easing out some of the tension across the back of the shoulders, which is a place we all get tight, I think. Good. So maybe once, twice more to each side. Make sure your jaw is relaxed. Your chest is soft. Good. And then release your arms. Let your arms come to rest on the floor and let the arms feel heavy. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then when you're ready, you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And once more, come back to tilting your knees to the right and to the left and seeing how this feels. Very nice. Yes. Yeah, lovely. So even just by that one little movement for the upper back, perhaps we just feel a little bit more fluid now when we're moving our knees from side to side. Okay, we're going to move on to another movement for the upper back now. So settle down in the center. Again, lengthen your legs out if it's comfortable, because it's just easier then to focus the movement in the upper back. So we're going to come on to the one, Linda, I think you were about to do, where you make a triangle with your arms. That's it. So you're touching your hands together in prayer pose. That's it, Mel. Make a triangle with your arms, touch your hands together in prayer pose. Keep the hands stuck together, keep the elbows straight. And then start to rock again, side to side across your upper back. Good. And again, just, pay some attention to what's happening to the elbows and the hands. So you want to keep the hands stuck together. They shouldn't be sliding on each other or coming apart. And you want to keep the elbows straight. So again, this helps us to focus the movement into the upper back, which is where we can feel quite stiff and tight. That's nice. And just finding a rhythmic movement that's enjoyable for you, going from side to side a few more times, and also resting your arms whenever you need to. That's it. So I think let your arms come to rest now on the floor. So there's always that nice feeling when we've done something with the arms, and it's much easier to let them rest. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then again, when you're ready, come back to bending your knees, standing your feet on the floor. And one last time, letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And again, seeing how that feels. And sometimes the challenge when we repeat a movement is to still be able to focus on it, and that's it, not get too distracted. Good. Pause in the middle for a moment and cross your arms over your chest. So you're giving yourself a hug with your arms. That's it. And then carry on rocking, but now let your elbows and your head go in the same direction as your knees. So keep on tilting your knees from side to side, but you're now also, that's it, adding in rocking across the upper back and the head. Very nice. So you're rocking sort of from side to side across the back of your body. And eventually we're going to come all the way onto one side, and we're going to do some little twisting movements on our side. And if it's more comfortable, do put a cushion under the side of your head, because you want to have your arms sort of free in front of you rather than propping your head up on one arm. And so I think most of you have got cushions in the vicinity. Sorry, I should have said right at the beginning. So settling on your side with your knees bent. And just have your arms sort of relaxed in front of you. So imagine you were going to go to sleep, and just let your arms be quite relaxed in front of you. It's good if your knees are bent at a right angle to your body. That's it. And also that if you sort of slide the feet forwards a little bit, so perhaps the feet are immediately below the knees, just so you feel really settled on the side of your body. Now, it might be that as we move through these twists that you want to remove the cushion from under your head at some point, but it's probably more comfortable to start with it there. And when you're ready, I want you to keep your arms quite relaxed. So if your top elbow is straight, see if you can let that top elbow bend and just soften down a little bit. So your focus is going to be rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head, letting your top shoulder roll back and letting the arms follow. That's it. So try and let the arms, so try and keep the arms quite passive and they're following the movement rather than initiating it. So that, you initiate the movement by rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head, letting your top shoulder follow. And you can let your knees slide a bit, that's absolutely fine. Good, and I think, yes, like you're doing, roll in and out of this a few times. Keep your bottom arm on the floor, I think. Yes, I'd actually keep the bottom arm down on the floor, Helen, rather than letting it follow. I should have been clearer about, so the bottom arm can stay very settled on the floor. It doesn't really need to do anything. The top arm can follow the top shoulder as it moves back. And then if you like, it might be quite nice to stay with your top shoulder coming onto the floor behind you. And to get that top shoulder on the floor, you may need to let your top knee come away from your bottom knee. And it might be at that point that you want to put the cushion, remove the cushion from under your head and slide it under that top knee, maybe. That might be more comfortable. So you've got this feeling of the top shoulder resting on the floor behind you. And just settle there for a few cycles of breath and see if you can feel the movement of your breath in your body. So we're letting the shoulders settle and we're trying to focus our attention on the movement of the breath within us. Noticing where we feel the breathing, noticing how our breathing feels. So maybe a cycle or two more of breath. And then it might be nice to roll onto your back and just have a couple of cycles of breath on your back before you come onto the side too. And yes, just have your cushion to hand. So come onto your back to sort of see how does it feel to be on your back. Sometimes it's quite nice to come back there. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then roll over onto your second side and settle on your second side. And again, maybe have the cushion under the side of your head to start with. And take a little bit of time to feel settled and comfortable on your side. So again, remember to have the arms quite soft. The bottom arm is going to stay there. The top arm, it's probably quite nice if the elbow is bending. Imagine you're going to go to sleep here. Your knees are at a right angle to your body. That's it. And I think most of you have got your feet sort of forwards a bit, so they're under your knees or in line with your knees. And then whenever you're ready, you can start that little rolling movement. So you're rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head. You let that top shoulder obviously move back. You let your top arm come along with the movement. So it's quite nice with your top hand if you can sort of trail your top hand across the front of your body. So rather than lifting your arm up, that's it, rather than lifting your arm up too much, try and trail your hand across the front of your body, which just helps the arm stay more relaxed. So one of the things we're trying to do here is find the movement from the center of ourselves, the movement of the rib cage. So quite often we can do a lot of things with our arms and not so much with the middle of ourselves. So try to really feel how you're rolling from the side of your head towards the back of your head. Your top shoulder follows. That top arm can then come along, sweeping across the front of your chest. And you can move in and out of this a couple more times if you like. And then you can stay in the twist for a few breaths. So at that point, it might be that you want to bring your cushion out from under your head and put it between your knees. Or it might be to get your back shoulder on the floor, you need to let that top knee come up a little bit higher. So see if you can be in a place where it's comfortable, you can settle down with both shoulders on the floor. Sorry, I just need to blow my nose for a moment. Both shoulders on the floor, and then you can focus in on your breathing. So feeling the expansion of the inhalation and the feeling of emptying as you exhale. And have a couple more cycles of breath. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And from here, rather than rolling back onto your back, let yourself roll all the way back onto your side and just have a few breaths on your side. So it might be that you just want to put your arm or your cushion back under the side of your head. Because from here, we're going to come over into sitting. We're going to start in cobbler pose and then just do a few things for the sort of feet, ankles and hips in sitting. So come and sit. Yeah, so nothing too dramatic. So come and sit on your mat and lean back onto your hands, lean through your arms, that's it. And bring the soles of your feet together in cobbler pose and just sort of see how that feels. We'll spend a bit more time here in a moment. So perhaps just a couple of breaths here. And then from here, my legs are going to disappear. You're going to lengthen your legs out on the floor. Keep leaning back onto your arms. And do a little bit of pointing your toes and then pointing your heels. So point your toes away from you, point your heels away from you. It's quite nice if you can feel your heels just sliding on the floor. So in some ways it's possibly good to not have your heels on the yoga mat because it can be a bit sticky. If you're on a carpet or a rug or even a wooden floor. And then from here, keep leaning into your right hand and you're going to bend your left knee and bring your left arm around the back of your left thigh. And you're going to be circling your ankle here. So circle in one direction, circle in the other. So if you've been doing cycling or running or walking, these things are all really good. Okay, a little bit more, one direction and then the other. And then from the ankle, we're going to come on to a movement for the hip joint. So swap arms. So you're going to hold the outside of your left foot with your right hand, and you're going to lean onto your left arm and hand. And you're going to do this sort of side to side swinging movement, yeah, for your left leg. Good. And just see how that feels. So keeping quite sort of easy, just notice how this feels in the hip joint. Now, there's a couple of options from here. If it's possible to lean your foot somewhere onto your thigh, that would probably be the most helpful. But if not, the foot could always go onto the floor. I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to take the right hand and you're going to thread your right fingers between your left toes. So you want to have the sole of the left foot facing the palm of the right hand. So you're going to thread your fingers between your toes. I'm sure we've all done this before in class. And then just give us a little bit of a massage to the ball of your foot. So we're coming now to work on the foot. So just a little bit, we can massage into the ball of the foot. Just having the fingers between the toes is really good for creating a bit of space between the toes. And then let that go. Lengthen that leg out. You can shake your right hand out. Keep leaning onto your left hand because you're going to fold your right knee in towards you. Support around the back of your right leg with your right hand. And then a bit of circling. Circling into that right ankle in both directions. Very nice to see Otter there, Mel. Okay. Now swap arms now. So you're going to take the left hand to catch the outside edge of the right foot. And then we're going to do this little bit of swinging of the right leg from side to side. Seeing how this feels in the right hip joint. Good. Let the leg move from side to side. Very nice. Now I've got a feeling it's the Monday morning bin lorry is making its way down my road, so if it all goes a bit noisy. Okay, you know what you know what you're doing. If it's possible on this side, let the foot rest somewhere on your thigh, or it can come down onto the floor. And then again, left hand, threading the fingers between the toes of the right foot. So your palm is facing the sole of your foot. Just see how possible that is. So to your best ability, yeah? And then a bit of massaging into the ball of the foot. So really good for all those sort of stiff, clunky bits. Again, you know, if you've been walking, running, out and about. Good. Okay, we're going to let that go. You can lengthen that leg out, you can shake that hand out. Just give both legs a little bit of a roll on the floor. So there's one more foot thing I'd like us to do before we come up into standing. And again, let's just see how this works. So what I'm saying first of all is come into cobbler pose. So come back into cobbler pose. And then there's a cobbler pose variation. It doesn't always suit everyone, where you bring one foot on top of the other foot. So if this doesn't suit you, so I just want you to be able to get to the sole of your foot, to massage the sole of your foot. So if that doesn't work, it might be that you have, you know, you come back to this, if that's a better way to get to the sole of your foot. But if you know, it's just a little variation. If you can, from cobbler pose, bring one foot on top of the other foot. And then just use your hands to massage onto one of your soles of one of your feet. You can massage the inner arch, that can often feel quite stiff. You can massage sort of in the middle of the foot, up into that point, which is just, so there's this point, isn't there, but I call the sparkling spring, it's known as, this point sort of beneath the toes. And you can massage into the outer arch of your foot. And you can use your thumb or your knuckles or the heel of your hand. And then swap feet. We're not going to stay here long, and just do a little bit on the other foot. So come to massage the sole of your other foot. And again, just see if there's somewhere that feels a bit tight on your foot. It could be it's stiff or a bit achy. Again, it could be the inner arch, could be the middle of the foot up to that point just below the ball of the foot. Or it could be the outer arch. Good. And so really what we're doing here is just waking up our feet a little bit, and then we're going to see how it feels to come and stand on our feet that are hopefully a little bit more awake. So when you've done that in your own time, come up into standing. We're going to do some things in standing, but first of all, we're just going to settle in standing and see how it feels to bring these feet to the floor, these feet that we've worked a little bit. So before you do anything in standing, just maybe look at your feet. And in fact, what we're going to then do is bring one hand to the belly and one hand to the chest and just settle for a few quiet breaths in standing. So the hands on the front of the body are to help us connect with our breathing a little bit more. So you might want to have a couple of big sighing breaths, and then just perhaps for 3 or 4 cycles of breath, just settling in standing. Seeing if you can feel your feet on the floor, and also maybe can you feel the movement of your breath in your body under one or both of your hands. And then let your arms go and come to this one that we usually do in standing when we first come into standing. So sort of loose, easy, swinging twist, letting the arms slap onto the body, help you wake up a little bit if you're still like me, struggling to wake up today. That's it. Let the feet come along. Just enjoy the feeling of the whole of the body in movement. And then from here, here, maybe just a couple more times. And then from here, we're going to come back to just feeling our breath and our body in a slightly different way. So let that go. Let your feet settle down. And then this time, bring your hands onto the side, low side ribs. So you've got your, if I come a bit nearer, I've got my hands coming to the, my fingers coming to the front and my thumbs going around towards the back. And just see what you can feel here. If you close your eyes for a couple of breaths, can you feel this sort of middle part of yourself widening as you breathe in, narrowing as you exhale? And then again, let that go. Come back to swinging your arms again. Come back to that sort of loose, easy swinging twist just a few more times. Again, feeling your whole body in movement. And then from here, we'll come into a little bit of our reaching up through one side and then the other. So a couple more times, swinging your arms from side to side, as it feels so nice. And then stop, settle down, bring your arms up and come into this one where we reach up through one arm. Try not to look up because that's going to sort of make you come into a little back bend. Just to reach through one arm, reach through the other. As you're reaching, shift your weight into the reaching side. Good. And then from here, we're going to sweep all the way down into a forward bend. So if you, as you come down, you feel your lower back needs some support, bend your knees, rest your elbows on your thighs. Otherwise, go all the way down into a forward bend. So just sort of seeing how your lower back feels today. And if you go all the way into the forward bend, just be as floppy as you can. If you're supporting yourself on your thighs, let your head go. Might be that your knees are quite bent, heavy arms, heavy head. Very nice. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then with the next exhalation, roll back up into standing. When you come back up, have a little shake out of hands and legs. And we're going to come into quite a, that's what I say, simple balance. We're going to come into a little balance here. Then we're going to do a sort of sun salute variation. I do mean a variation. And then we're going to come back into another balance. So start by reaching up through your right arm. So you're reaching into your right arm. And as you do so, you're shifting your weight into your right leg. Your left arm is heavy and relaxed. Start to feel that your left heel can come away from the floor. And the ball of the left foot feels light. Then we're going to let that left foot come off the floor completely and catch the top of the foot or the trouser leg. Good. Let the knee drop towards the floor. And then from here, bring your hand down onto your breastbone. And just see if you can settle quietly. Good. That's it. Maybe you can feel the movement of your breath in your chest, where your hand is. That's it, letting the left knee drop towards the floor. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. Very nice. Come down when you're ready. Have a little shake out. So this first balance is just really a sense of how does it feel to balance today. And it's good to just try and not take any of it too seriously. So start to reach up through the left arm. And that feeling of shifting the weight onto the left leg. So the right arm is heavy and floppy. And your right heel is coming off the ground. And then the ball of your right foot can come off. Catch the top of your foot or your trouser leg. Let your knee drop towards the floor. Bring your hand down onto your breastbone. So just see, is it possible to sort of be quiet and settled here? allowing the breath to move through you. Letting the shoulders soften, letting the face relax. Letting the breath flow through you. So if you can have another 2 or even 3 cycles of breath here. Wonderful, really, really nice. Come down, have a little shake out, and then fold down again into a forward bend, because each time we come into a forward bend, so again you can rest your elbows on your thighs if you like, or all the way forward. So each time we come into a forward bend, perhaps we're able to release a little bit more. We can feel the back of the legs start to ease out, and the lower back perhaps starts to release a little bit more. Really give the weight of your head to the floor, so if your neck is tight, there's that opportunity for the muscles of the neck to release. Let the arms be heavy and relaxed. Have one more cycle of breath in the forward bend. And then let a breath come in, and as you exhale, roll back up into standing. And a little shake out. So we're going to come to the back of the mat, and we're going to do a sequence which is pretty much the elements of sun salute, but we're going from the back of the mat, so just for a little bit of variation. We're going to do the same sequence 3 times. So I know sometimes we vary it, but we're not going to today. So back of the mat, feet hip width apart, bring your hands into prayer pose. So from here, we're going to let a breath come in, and as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in, let your shoulders drop down, and then curling down, curving down into a forward bend. And from your forward bend, you're going to walk your hands forwards into dog pose. Come forwards into dog until it feels like a good length for you. And then have a couple of breaths there. You can be bending one knee, bending both knees. And then from this dog pose, down onto hands and knees. So come to settle on hands and knees with your hands under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. And we're going to do some cat movements here. So see how it feels to round your back to the ceiling, to dip your spine down to the floor. If you feel that you'd like to add in some tail wagging movements, if you come here and that and you think, gosh, that's what my back really needs, then absolutely. Otherwise, just sticking with the cat, if that's what you prefer, a little bit more rounding and dipping. Couple more times. As you round your back, really let your head hang. As you dip your spine down to the floor, let your belly soften so the spine can dip down. And then from here, we're going to bring one foot forwards into lunge. So it doesn't matter which, because we'll do both. So bring one foot forwards. And it might be, so just obviously always checking in lunge that your front knee is over your front heel. If you haven't got that lovely lunge feeling of the stretch through the front of the back leg thigh, you tuck your toes under, you walk your back leg away a little bit more. And have a few breaths in your lunge. Your back toes could be tucked under or flat. We're just trying to give the weight of the pelvis down to the ground. So we open up through the front of the back leg thigh. We're going to change sides and lunge. So from hands and knees, bring that leg back, bring the other foot forwards. Now, you have, after this side of lunge, you have a little bit of a choice, because from here, we're going to go into plank pose, which is what you would do in sun salute. You could go straight from lunge into plank, or you could come back onto hands and knees. So this first time, I'm going to go onto hands and knees and then on into plank. But if you want to go straight into plank, you can do. So from lunge on this second side, either straight into plank or back onto hands and knees, and coming into your plank pose, lengthening one leg back behind you and then the other. Really stretch your heels away. Try to find that long straight line of plank. You're looking down at the floor a little bit ahead of your fingertips. And then from here, keep your hands where they are, keep your toes where they are, bring your knees down onto the floor. And then fold your hips back over your heels with your toes tucked under. It may be that you can touch your forehead to the ground. Let a breath leave you, let a breath come in. And then as we exhale, we're going to travel forwards into face up dog, rounding our back to the ceiling. So you're looking back to your pelvis. You're rocking forwards into face up dog. Very nice. Good. Have a breath or two in face up dog. And then from here, we're going to fold back into child pose with the feet flat on the floor. So this is like a little mini breather in child pose. Just a sort of couple of breaths being quiet and settled in your child. That's it. So let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then back onto hands and knees, and we're going to come into dog pose and then forward bend and then up into standing. So hands and knees, big handprints on the floor, tuck your toes under, rock your hips back over your heels, pick your knees up off the floor. See how this dog pose feels. Maybe bending both knees, bending one knee at a time, walking on the spot. And then from dog, walking your hands in towards your feet so you end up in your forward bend. Feel all of the weight in your feet. And then bring the backs of your hands together. So you roll up into standing, touching the backs of your hands. You can take your arms all the way up to the ceiling. If you like to come into a little standing back arch by letting your pelvis come forwards and looking up, you can do. And then bring your hands back into prayer pose in front of you. So we're going to do that twice more. So at this point, it's quite good if you come up into your standing back arch with your feet a bit wider apart. But if they ended up quite wide apart, bring them back hip width. So hands in prayer pose. Yes, have a drink of water if you want before we go on to the next cycle. So hands in prayer pose. Let a breath come in as you exhale. Take your arms down and then up. Just be long and tall here, breathe in, and then as you exhale down into your forward bend. And then from this forward bend, walking your hands forwards into dog pose. I'll just come and have a little look at you. So on into your dog pose, third dog pose, see how it feels. Bending one knee, bending both knees. How does it feel across your upper back? Can you let yourself feel wider there? Maybe by softening the elbows slightly. Good, good. And then from dog pose down onto hands and knees, where we come back to our cat movements again. So settle on hands and knees, hands under the shoulders, rounding the back, dipping the spine. Good. Again, if you want to do a little bit of tail wagging, so that side to side movement of the pelvis, you can do that. And maybe a little bit more cat, rounding and dipping. And then again from here, we'll come on into lunge. So stepping one foot forwards. Again, the front knee over the front heel. We probably want to then walk the back leg away a little bit more. The toes tucked under. So we can let the pelvis drop down towards the floor. We can feel that opening through the front of the back leg. It's always good to have a few breaths, big breaths in lunge. It might be before, we didn't do this on the other side, but before you come into side 2 of lunge, it might be that you want to ease back out of lunge. So if you untuck your back toe, and this one where we sort of rock back and look back, is always quite nice after lunge. And then you can swap sides. Obviously, if you're going to go straight from lunge into plank pose, you won't do that easing back out of lunge. You could ease back and then go back into lunge. Maybe we'll try that. So side 2 of lunge, knee over your heel in the front foot. Finding that lovely stretch through the front of the back leg thigh. Some big exhalations, giving the weight of the pelvis to the floor. And then from here, maybe we could untuck our back toe. We could ease out of lunge for a moment. And then coming back into lunge, we could perhaps see how can we go from lunge directly into plank pose, or as directly as possible. Might end up going through a little bit of a dog. So then when you end up in plank, try to feel you're in your long straight line of plank, shoulders to hips to heels. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then keep the hands where they are, keep the toes tucked, knees come down. Fold your hips back over your heels into this sort of long child pose where your elbows stay off the floor but your forehead can touch the ground. Let a breath come in, and then as you exhale, you're going to be rounding your back to the ceiling, watching your pelvis come forwards into face-up dog, untucking your toes when you're in face-up dog, having a breath or two here. And from face-up dog, folding back for a little mini breather, couple of breaths in child pose. Let the elbows rest on the floor in this child pose. If you prefer to be kneeling than child, that's absolutely fine. Not everyone's keen on child. And then once more, coming on to hands and knees. I might have a little watch of you in a moment. Hands and knees, toes tucked under. Rocking your hips back over your heels, picking your knees up off the floor, coming into dog. So our fourth dog pose, seeing how this feels. What can we do to help the shoulders soften a bit? Good. What can we do to help the back of the legs release? That's usually bending one knee or bending both. Good. And then walking, very nice dog poses, walking your hands in towards your feet, ending up in your forward bend, all of your weight in your feet. Touch the backs of your hands together, rolling up into standing. Your hands trail up the front of your body, straight up to the ceiling. If you want to come into your little standing back arch where your pelvis comes forwards and your gaze comes up, you can do. And then hands down in front of you, back into prayer pose. So we'll do that little sequence one last time. Just check your hands check your feet are hip width apart. Let a breath come in as you exhale, your arms come down and then up. Breathing in, dropping your shoulders, exhale, rolling down into a forward bend. Big exhalation there, give away your head, and then walk your hands forwards into dog pose. Very nice. So sort of the last dog pose, I think, where we're walking forwards into it. Give yourself a couple of breaths there. See how it feels. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. And from dog pose, coming down onto hands and knees, settling yourself with your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. Coming to rounding your back, dipping your spine. A little bit of tail wagging if you like. And then when you're ready from hands and knees, we'll be doing our last lunge on each side. So stepping one foot forwards, sure your knees over your heel, and then you might walk your back leg away a little bit more. Giving the weight of the pelvis down to the ground, having a few breaths here. And again, we can ease back out of our lunge before we swap sides, so we can untuck that back toe, we can ease back, looking back towards our back leg. And coming onto hands and knees, bringing the other foot forwards in lunge. Again, organising yourself so your front knee is over your front heel. You walk your back leg away. You have a few breaths here. Good. Maybe another breath or two in lunge, that feeling of the pelvis becoming heavy, giving its weight to the floor. And then as you exhale, you can untuck your back toe. Let's ease out of this lunge. And then again, we'll move straight from lunge into plank pose. So we can rock back for a moment, ease out. Come back then into lunge, tucking the back toe under. And to your best ability, going from lunge straight into plank pose. You might move through dog, which is fine, but ending up in that long straight line of plank. Really stretch your heels back behind you. And then let your knees come down to the floor. Keep your hands where they are. Keep your toes tucked. Keep your elbows off the floor, but touch your forehead down. Let a breath come in. And then as you exhale, rounding your back to the ceiling. Rocking forwards into face up dog. Untucking the toes. Good. Breath or two here. Really trying to feel you're sort of supporting your spine from in your arms. So the sort of pelvis hangs off the end of the spine. And then we can fold back into child pose for a couple of quiet breaths. Perhaps slightly an extra quiet breath or two here, because we're going back up into standing and doing a little bit more in standing. So when you're ready, we'll be moving up through dog pose and a forward bend, rolling back up into standing. So yes, big planted hands on the floor, tucking your toes under, exhaling, rocking your hips back over your heels, coming into dog pose. Have a little look at your dogs, that's very nice, lovely. Obviously dog pose, walking into your forward bend. In your forward bend, touching the backs of your hands together, rolling up into standing. Taking your arms all the way up. Come into that little standing back arch if you like. If you feel when you come into your standing back arch that you need to bend your knees a bit to help your tailbone drop, that can be helpful. And then all the way. Good. So just settle for a moment, come towards the middle of your mats and settle for a moment and just see how it feels to be back in standing after all that movement. You could bring your hands either to one of these two places, either hand on the chest, hand on the belly, or hands on the low ribs. So perhaps whichever one is more helpful for you in feeling your breathing. And then just settle in standing for maybe 3 cycles of breath. See if you can feel your breath move through you for 3 in and out breaths. Good, and then release your arms and come back to this one again. Come back to swinging your arms, sort of, yes, easy swinging twist. So we're going to do a little bit more, I think one more balance and standing and a couple of other things. Okay. So a couple more times with this one. And then settling down, feet hip width apart and parallel. So what I thought we would do is come back to this way of reaching up and shifting our weight to take ourselves into a balance. But this time we're going to take ourselves into tree pose. So you just decide wherever you can put your foot wherever you like on your inner thigh. But our starting point is going to be, so let's reach up through the right arm. Let the left arm be heavy and floppy, and we're shifting our weight onto our right leg. And then from here, if we need to use our left hand, we can use it to help catch our foot, bring it onto our inner thigh. But then from here, gather your hands into prayer pose. And just see how it feels to settle in tree pose. Settle and breathe. And soften. If you feel steady, you could then let both arms grow up. Let the shoulders drop. Feel yourself all the way from your heel up to your fingertips, your standing heel. Gather your hands back into prayer pose at your breastbone. Done, everyone. Very lovely. Wonderful. Yes, come down. Have a little shake out. And again, just looking at your feet, settling your feet down. So, Mel, you might have missed this on the other side, but you on standing with the right foot. We started by reaching up. So this time it's the left arm. We're reaching up. We're shifting our weight onto our left leg. So this feeling of being long through the left side of ourselves. And then keeping that arm reaching up, we can use our right hand to bring our right foot, whatever we want to have. And then both hands can gather into the breastbone. We can settle here. Settle, breathe. And from here, if you feel steady and you would like to, you can let your arms grow up. Keep the shoulders soft and relaxed. Let the palms feel soft. Feel alive all the way into your fingertips. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Gather your hands back into your breastbone, back into prayer pose. Maybe just smile if you're still in tree pose. Well done. Brilliant. Kind of a bit of shake out of arms and legs. And then what we're going to do is bring our feet a bit wider apart. So it could be the width of the narrow edge of your mat if you're standing facing the narrow edge of your mat. And then come into this one. So again, we've got that feeling of reaching one arm up, shifting our weight into that reaching arm side, and the other arm is heavy and floppy. Good, so let that arm hang. Feel the length through the side of your body. And sometimes we move in and out of this, but today we're just staying there for a couple of breaths and feeling the length through the side of the body. And then come out, swap sides. So we're reaching up and over with one arm, and we're shifting our weight into that reaching leg side. The other arm is heavy and floppy. Can we just have a few breaths here? Good, and then come back to the center. Keep your feet wide like this. Take your arms wide and then give yourself a hug. And yes, Helen, I'm afraid your number one favorite on into cow arms. Drop your shoulders down. No, eagle arms. What am I talking about? Eagle arms. Here. And then from here, you're going to go into a forward bend. So just remember which arm you've got on top, because we'll do the other one in a moment. So with your feet wide, you can bend your knees a little bit or a lot and fold forwards. And at some point, as long as you're remembering which arm is on top, you can undo your arms and release your arms down to the floor, staying in that forward bend. Let the head go, let the arms go. And then let a breath come in, sink down into your heels, roll back up into standing. And again, breathe in, take your arms wide, hopefully remembering, exhaling, giving yourself a hug. Then you have the other arm on top this time. On into your eagle arms on this side, and then again on into the forward bend with your feet as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. Sinking into your heels, bending your knees a little bit or a lot. Folding forwards, keeping your arms crossed as long as you like. Again, releasing them whenever you want to. Giving the weight of the head and the arms down to the floor. And from there, you can sink into your heels, you can roll up into standing. Have a little shake out, and then, shake your arms and legs out, or your legs particularly. Watch me for a moment, because we're going to take our feet a bit wider. I just want to show you the couple of things you can do here. And I was just thinking you could be quite free with these. So you can either be in the center, coming into these twists. Yeah. So turning one way, turning the other. I don't have to take my arm up on that side. And you can also be doing these side lengthening movements where you walk your hands around to one foot. Yeah, and then you could come back to the center. You could do some more of these. There might be other things you wanted to do there, but that was sort of two suggestions. So with your feet wider, make sure you're on your mat. Make sure your feet are parallel still, and you sink well into your heels. And then you come forwards and just have a little play around with a bit of the sort of twisting. You stay in the middle, and then the sort of side lengthening movements. Yes, and you can sort of add them together, can't you? Which I think you could always add them together. You could always walk over to one side and then take one arm up as well. It's just, as long as it feels comfortable. That's it. Interesting. And notice a bit. You don't have to stop what you're doing, but notice what your legs are doing. So are both knees doing the same thing? Or is one knee bending more than the other? And it's fine if it is. And what's your pelvis doing? Is your pelvis staying in the center, or are you moving your pelvis a bit side to side? Very nice. So again, all of these things are fine as long as it feels comfortable. You know, it may feel a bit of a stretch in the legs, as long as you're not, that's very nice. And exactly, and then sort of a bit of a forward bend in the center might be nice as well. Beautiful, looks really lovely, everyone. Very nice to see you doing your own thing. So just before we come out of this wide forward bend, you can, for the last sort of couple of breaths, you can do whatever you like. It might be nice to do a forward bend, just flopping forwards in the center. Sinking into your heels. Lovely. And then whenever you're ready, coming back up into standing, sinking down into your heels. Having a little shake out of your legs when you get back up. So we're going to, at the back of our mats, one last time, come down through a forward bend and dog pose and into child pose. So just maybe take a moment to feel yourself in standing, and then at the back of your mat, feel yourself in standing, feel your footprints on the floor, and then this time, just with your arms hanging, start to let yourself roll down into a forward bend. Maybe have 2 or 3 breaths in the forward bend. Feeling your weight in your footprints, particularly your heels, letting your head and arms go. And then walking your hands on into dog pose whenever you're ready. Seeing how, I keep saying it's the last dog pose, this really is the last dog pose. Seeing how this dog pose feels. Big hands on the floor. How does it feel across the back of your shoulders? How do the backs of your legs feel? If you'd like to do any of your one-leg dog poses, if you feel drawn to doing that, then by all means you could do those. That's it. They might feel quite nice after the wide forward bend. Good, yeah. So any of those variations, you know them all. You can have your legs straight, you can have your knee bent, you can have your pelvis level, you can roll your pelvis. Good. Very nice. Lovely. And then folding down into child pose. And just maybe a couple of breaths in child, or in kneeling if you prefer, Mel, that's absolutely fine. And from child pose, we're going to then slither forwards onto our belly and lie on our belly. We're just going to do a little bit of breathing on the belly. So when you've settled onto your belly, it might be that you want to do, there's a couple of things you could do to settle. So have your hands wherever you like when you end up on your belly, wherever's most comfortable. So you could wiggle your pelvis a little bit. Yes, or you could do that one, Maria, exactly. So you could wiggle your pelvis, or you could do the one where you bend your knees and you bring the soles of your feet towards the ceiling and you tilt your feet from side to side. But Linda, yeah, if that's comfortable, if that one's not good for your lower back, then don't do it. So, and then eventually I would just like you to sort of settle quietly on your belly and see how it feels to focus on your breathing here. So as I think, as all of you are aware, we were doing this one a lot sort of, in the early weeks of lockdown, because it's been very good for the breathing. Sort of encourages us to use the lung capacity in the back of our body. So have a few more breaths here. Just where do you feel your breath? Do you feel more of that expansion of the inhalation in the back of your body? As you exhale, what do you feel? And it's not always the most comfortable place for us to lie and breathe. So maybe just another cycle or two of breath. And from here, you might be thrilled to hear we're going to be rolling over onto our backs. We're not staying on our backs, it's not going to sleep time, but so from your belly, if you can roll onto your back and just settle. When you arrive on your back, just sort of see how would you like to lie on your back? And let yourself be in your position of choice for a few breaths. You could revisit a couple of things that we did towards the beginning of class. You could let your head roll from side to side. And you could also bring your hands onto the front of your body and feel the movement of your breath in the front of your body. So lying down onto your back. And then we're going to, in a moment, do a few things sort of around the hips and pelvis on our backs. And then we're going to come over into sitting and sitting on sort of hands and knees and sitting and do them there. So once you're settled on your back, you're going to bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor if your legs are long, which I think most of yours are. Good, and then come back to that movement of letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. And then we're going to carry on with this, but with some sort of different leg variations. So pause in the middle. Fold your right knee into your chest. And then take the right knee out to the side and bring the right ankle to rest on your left thigh, close to your knee. That's it. And then start to do a little bit of rocking side to side on your standing foot now. If you feel that you want to bring that standing foot a bit more centrally placed, you can do. That's nice, good. See how that feels. Very nice. And then you have this option of either carrying on rocking or pausing in the middle, picking your left foot off the floor and catching your hands around the back of your left thigh. So one hand goes through that little sort of hole in between your legs. That's it, between your legs. Good. Good. And having a few breaths there. That's it. So let the left foot be nice and relaxed. Yeah, that's it. Lovely. Maybe another breath or two here. And then keep the legs in this organisation and bring your left foot back onto the floor. And then slide your right leg a bit further across the left leg. So you're now crossing your knees. Yeah, so as if you were going to be sitting with your legs crossed. That's it. And then do a little bit of rocking here. So a bit of rocking on your standing foot. See how that feels. And again, you can either stay with the rocking, or in this position with your knees crossed, you can then fold your knees into your chest and see how it feels to have a few breaths there. So you hold around the top of your knees or around the back of your thighs. Yeah, around the top of one knee. Good. And have a few breaths there. So it's sort of the beginning. So it's the beginning, or pretty much in there, of cow legs, which we will be doing in a moment, and sitting. So from here, when you've had a few breaths, you could then take your legs up, uncross your legs, take them up to the ceiling, give them a bit of a shake out. Very nice. And then bring both feet back onto the floor. So knees bent, both feet standing on the floor. And then fold the left knee into your chest. Bring the left knee out to the side and your left ankle onto your right thigh. Again, have it quite close to your knee. That's it. So left ankle close to the right knee. And then rocking on your standing foot. This will be your right foot, I think. So rocking side to side. Again, you can remember you can move that right foot so it's a bit more in the center. Good. And you can carry on rocking, or you can pause in the center. You can pick your standing foot off the floor. You can catch your hands around the back of that right thigh. Have a few breaths folding in. Hang on, Mel, what's gone on there? You haven't got your left. Oh, you have. Yes, I couldn't. Yeah, fine. For some reason, I couldn't see. I couldn't see your left foot. Perfect. So very nice. A few breaths there. When you fold in like this, you can always rock a little bit from side to side if you like, or yeah, if that's, if that feels good. And then obviously the next thing we did was to bring that right foot back on the floor and then slide the left leg further across the right. So you're crossing your knees. And then we did a little bit of rocking on our standing foot with our knees crossed. Very nice. And then we also did a bit of folding in. So folding the knees into the chest. That's it. Good. Having a few breaths there. And just seeing how this feels. So you can have another few breaths here. Make sure the knees are folding in towards the chest. And then whenever you want, you can uncross your legs. You can take your legs up to the ceiling, give them a little bit of a shake out. You could add your arms in now if you wanted to. Ah, yes, and one final thing on your back when you've done that. So one final thing on your back is to bring your feet into cobbler pose up in the air, and you can hold onto, hold onto your ankles. So reach between your knees, hold onto your ankles or round your toes. And you can do a little bit of rocking from side to side with the soles of your feet touching in cobbler pose. Now, if you're feeling energetic or that you want to try this, you could, we're coming over into sitting. You could from here rock all the way into sitting cobbler pose, but you don't have to do that. So, but you could just come over and sit in cobbler pose. I always notice, I think it's Thursday evening, Emma is always very enthusiastic on my Thursday evening, people. So yeah, so end up in cobbler pose. I think maybe if possible, face the long edge. It doesn't matter too much. We're going to come into pinwheel and pigeon. So if you want to be on your mat, start off facing the long edge of your mat. If you've got carpet underneath you, it doesn't really matter. I think you just don't want to end up on the wooden floor. That's what you've got. Yeah, and you could lean back onto your hands for a moment, just see how it feels to be back and sitting. Yes, if you like, I mean, you've got all these options here, haven't you? You could fold forwards, you could rock a little bit, if you like. That's another option. We are, in a moment, going to be moving on to pinwheel. If you rock a little bit like this, you can also do this sort of side lengthening movements here, where we keep, that's nice, where we leave the legs and pelvis where they are. Reach from one side to the other. Very nice. And then we will move on into pinwheels. So let one knee come on top of the other knee. Let your top leg slide back. And then just do a little bit of your circling in pinwheel. So remember, you can do this with your arms free, or if you're feeling a bit stiff in your upper back, you can give yourself a hug. Let your head fall forwards, and this might be an opportunity then to release the shoulders and the neck a bit, as well as the hips. Let's also give ourselves a little bit of time in the pinwheel forward bend, which can be that nice sort of quiet place. So turning towards this knee that's pointing out to the side, folding the weight of your body down over that leg. Having a few quiet breaths. And then from your pinwheel forward bend, walking your hands in again, coming up, because from here we're going to move on into pigeon pose. So this knee is going to slide back a little bit. So I always think it comes sort of that thigh is now in line with the long edge of your mat. And then we can slide this other leg back, lengthen it out, tuck the toes under, maybe helps. And if it's okay for your front knee, let your pelvis roll. So if you take your hand onto the back of your pelvis, the back of your pelvis is level, it's parallel with the floor. If that puts too much pressure into your front knee, then just let your pelvis come off to the side. So your weight's coming down through the front leg, sort of the hip of the front leg. And so in pigeon pose, we're having a few breaths, a bit like lunge. We're trying to give the weight of our body down to the ground. I'm going to have a little look at you all. Very nice pigeons, good. Wonderful. So you can be, as you know, in pigeon pose, you can be on your forearms and elbows with your head up. You can go lower down and rest your forehead down onto the floor or the back of your hands. Or you can come higher up onto your hands. And you can also, you know, all these little things are really helpful to explore in pigeon, because sometimes we come into one of them. So I often quite like to come to my hands, tuck my back toe under and do a little bit of sort of rocking myself in this one. But yeah, it's helpful to go through these different variations of pigeon, because sometimes we'll come into one and we think, oh yeah, that's really moving me wherever I needed to really move today. And as you've probably guessed, today from pigeon, we are going to be moving on into cow legs. So you can have a few more breaths in pigeon, but whenever you're ready to come out, we'll roll back onto this front leg thigh, and then we'll swing our back leg around. I'm just going to sort of swivel forwards. So at this point, we want to see. So, you know, there's a few options here. Ideally, this top leg sit bone is on the floor. If it isn't, we could put a cushion under both sit bones, or we could bring this foot over to this side of the knee. If the bottom knee is feeling quite a lot of pressure, you can always lengthen out your bottom leg. So yes, please come into a position that feels that you can be comfortable to, or reasonably comfortable to settle here. A little bit of a wiggle. Let's just try turning each direction a few times. Yeah. So in pigeon, in cow legs, cow Gomukhasana, that's in all of the sitting positions. What we're looking for is this feeling of a heavy pelvis and heavy legs on the floor, and then our spine and our upper body can feel light. So the twisting can help with that. Maybe end up, if you're still okay to be there, do come out if you need to, but if you're okay to stay there, end up turning towards your top leg and just stay there for a couple of breaths, turn towards the top leg. This is what will help that top sit bone to settle. Good. And then come back to the center, lean back on your hands, uncross your legs and just give them a little bit of a roll. So we'll do the other side, and then we'll have a little bit of time after that to sit with our legs long and wide, because I know some of you quite like that. So when you feel that you've lengthened your legs out sufficiently, come back into cobbler pose. And you can again just see, how does it feel to be in cobbler pose? We've got all these different options. We can be rocking a bit if you like. You could be folding forwards if you like. You could be doing those side leg movements. Yeah, whatever you like. Just another, that's it, very nice. Just another couple of breaths in cobbler pose, and then we'll move on into pinwheel. So let's let this other side. So one leg rock and cross of the other. Not to the side we just did, slide that top leg back, a little bit of circling and settling. So this is why pinwheel is so helpful in this process of enabling us to settle the weight of the legs and the pelvis on the ground. And obviously the more we do it, the more our body knows what we're looking for it to do. So do give yourself this hug and do a bit of circling if you like. I was just thinking that we had as well as Eid on Friday, there was like an Eid Skype on Saturday with some of Cam's family from across the globe, and one of the aunts was saying to me, "Oh, I've just started doing yoga and it's so hard to sit on the floor." And I was saying, "Well, yes, but you have to. The more you do it, the easier it will become." So release your arms and turn towards this knee that's going out to the side. Fold the weight of your body down over that leg. Let your weight settle down onto the floor. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Have another couple of breaths, just being as settled and soft and relaxed in your pinwheel forward bend as possible. And then you can slowly start to walk your hands in, and then we'll slide this top knee back a bit. So maybe we're lining up the thigh with the long edge of the mat. We can then lean forwards a bit and let the back leg lengthen out behind us. And then at this point, if it's possible, if your front knee's happy with that, let your pelvis roll around. So if you bring your hand onto the back of your pelvis feels level. And at this point, well, I would probably have my back toe untucked, my back toes untucked, unless I wanted to do a little bit of rocking, in which case it can be helpful to tuck those toes under. So just, yeah, a little bit of time. I'm going to come have a look at you again in your pigeons. See what I can see. Very nice. Good. And then remember, you've got those different options with your arms. You've got the option of being on your forearms. You've got the option, that's nice, Maria, coming onto your hands. You've got the option of being really low in pigeon so that your forehead is on the ground or on the back of your hands. And wherever you are, you're just thinking, trying to feel that your pelvis is heavy, your shoulders are soft and relaxed. We're giving our weight down to the ground. Perhaps a couple more breaths in pigeon wherever you want to be. And you can always move between different positions. Yeah, the main reason we practice pigeon is for this release around the pelvis. So sometimes when we're moving between the different arm positions, it just enables us to stay here a bit longer. So the muscles into the buttock and around the hip joint can have a bit more opportunity to release. And then when you're ready to come out, you can roll onto your front leg hip. Come up, roll your weight over onto that front leg hip, and then swing your back leg around into your lovely cow legs. So very interesting, it can feel very different one side to the other. So I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit more challenging on this side. So remember, you've got these options. If this sit bone is really off the ground, cushion under both sit bones, or bring your foot here, or you lengthen this bottom leg out. So this is a good option if your bottom knee is feeling a bit grumbly. And then we will turn in both directions. And just see, again, you know, part of these settling in sitting is distracting ourselves, giving ourselves something else to do while the pelvis and the legs settle. Stop their grumbles. Yeah. So you can go from side to side a few times, and then you can end up staying, turn towards your top leg, letting your top sit bone settle down. Feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath leaving you. Come back to the centre if you're happy. If you're really happy in cow legs, you could always try sort of folding forwards in cow legs. That's only if you're really happy in cow legs. It's very nice. Lovely. If you're sort of slightly desperate to come out of cow legs, you can lean back onto your hands. And it's now time, just before we lie down, to come and let the legs lengthen out. So I know some of you quite like this sitting with your legs now, particularly long and wide. So again, you've got these options of leaning back on your hands. Some of you may find, now I've said this loads of times, so I'll swing round again. If you're going to fold forwards, it's because your pelvis is folding forwards. So sometimes it's helpful to feel what your pelvis is doing. You know, if this is quite challenging, your pelvis may be rolling back more, and it's perhaps not so helpful to fold forwards. So, yeah, we'll have a few more breaths here. So if you're leaning back on your hands, you just let the legs go. You can always roll your legs a bit. So the toes may want to roll forwards or want to roll back, but eventually organise them so they're pointing up to the ceiling. And then in this position, particularly if you're supporting yourself with your hands, you could stretch into your heels and then relax the legs. Do that a couple of times. So if you're folding forwards, you absolutely now can stay there. I'm just talking through a few things that you can do, particularly if you're less happy in this. So you can stretch into your heels, you can feel the legs engage, and then you can let that go. And so a lot of what we're trying to do here is just to let the legs go. That can take quite a while. Yeah, sometimes a bit of slapping the thighs is good. Yeah, so a bit massaging the legs. Yeah. Again, I think particularly if you've been cycling or running or doing a lot of walking, anything you can do to give your legs a bit of a massage is nice. And then, yes, it's just about time. If you're wanting to have a couple more breaths folding forwards here, you can do. Otherwise, when you're ready, you're going to make your way down, and we're just going to lie quietly on our backs, coming back to our breathing. So, yes, settling down onto your backs. Make sure you're going to be warm enough, although it seems to have brightened up a bit in the time that we've been practicing. We're just going to settle back down onto our backs. Just being quiet. Letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave you. You might like to rest your hands onto the front of your body. I'm just going to mute myself for a moment because I've got the Waitrose delivery guy on the front step, and then I will come back and finish the class. Just noticing where your awareness is, and if your mind has wandered off a little bit, as our minds do, come back just for perhaps 2 or 3 cycles of breath to feeling the movement of your breath somewhere in your body. Feeling the filling up of the inhalation, the emptying out of the exhalation. So thank you, everyone. There's no rush. You can carry on lying down. I'm just going to stop the recording.